Good morning, everyone. Thank you. We're going to record this so that those folks who weren't able to make it in person can still meet the requirement of having done the lab sampler training. My name is Sunny Summers. I'm a senior policy advisor with the department. And before we get started, I would like to take an opportunity to introduce everybody to our new Hemp program manager, Danette Renette. And Danette, if you want to come on screen for a hot second and introduce yourself, that would be awesome.
Hi, I'm Jeanette Burnett. I have just started in this position back on the 1st of May. I come from the OLCC where I was an inspector for 8 years on the marijuana side. If anyone has any questions for the program, any of our staff are fantastic to answer that, but of course, reach out anytime and put in a special request for information from me, and I'm happy to respond.
Awesome. Thank you, Danette. So with that, I am going to turn the bulk of the program over to Shannon Lane. She is our hemp testing specialist and wears a number of other hats in the hemp program. Be nice. But I think what we'll do is at the, if you can raise your digital hand, so to speak, if you have questions during the training, I can call on you. Otherwise, if you have questions at the end, we will have time to do that. So with that, Shannon.
Great. Thank you so much, Sunny. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is your annual lab sampling training. As Sunny said, this training is required on an annual basis. So if you could please put your name and lab affiliation in the chat, I can add your name to the lab training document as being an approved sampler. As Sunny said, this training is being recorded. So if you are watching this, when you're done, if you could please email me with your name, your lab affiliation, and the date that you watched the training. I can also add you to the list of approved samplers. So at the ODI hemp program, we license all hemp growers, handlers, and agricultural seed producers. And even though hemp is considered an agricultural crop, it is one of the most highly regulated agricultural crops. And so we need to make sure that all of our growers are following the rules that are outlined in Oregon Administrative Rule 603-048. 0010 through 2500. And we need to make sure that our licensees are compliant with these rules. And one of the biggest things we need to make sure they're compliant with is testing and making sure that the hemp that they're growing is at or below 0.3% total tetrahydrocannabidiol. So compliance is very important, and you guys play a huge role in that by going out and taking the samples and taking them back to the lab. So I do want to take this opportunity to say thank you to all of you for helping us to make sure our licensees are compliant. So all sampling and testing must be performed by a lab that's licensed with the Oregon Liquor and Cannabis Commission, or the OLCC, and accredited by the Oregon Health Authority, or OHA. And only samples that were taken and remained in the custody of those approved labs qualify for testing. So when it comes to testing, growers have 3 main responsibilities. They need to complete and submit the sample request form to the lab requesting pre-harvest testing. They need to ensure that the test results and both the sampling document and the on-site sampling documents are reported to the hemp program. And then they need to make sure that they harvest their entire harvest lot within that 30 days of the sampling date. And if for some reason the grower is not able to get that harvest lot sampled in that 30-day window, they need to stop what they're doing, fill out another sample request form, have the lab come back out, sample what's left, and then that 30-day window starts again for them to finish harvesting. So here's the sample request form. If you could please make sure when the growers are submitting them that they are using the most current version of the form. So you'll notice in the harvest lot name that 2024 is included in that harvest lot. If they're not using the correct form, if you could please ask them to fill it out. We do have this on our website, and I put the web address up there. You can share that with them, or you can just let them know to go to our website. They do need to make sure that they fill this form out completely. If they have blanks in it, you need to resubmit it to them and have them fill out the remaining information. So this is the hemp on-site sampling form that the lab samplers will be using. Again, if you could just make sure you're using the most current version of the form. It has 2024 in the harvest lot name. You are going to fill this form out based on what the grower submits with their sample request form. And then on the second page, you are going to be filling out the visual depiction where you're going to be putting a map of the production area. You're going to let us know the sawtooth pattern that you used, approximately where you took the samples, how many samples you took. And then if you could please give us some landmarks on those. Not everyone does them, so north is facing up, and so we can get kind of turned around. So if you could maybe include a street name, or this is where the irrigation ditch is, or the house, or something to just kind of orient us so that when we're going back through these, we can make sure that we understand exactly where you took those samples. So sampling and testing must be conducted as described in Exhibits A and B, and both of these exhibits are on our website. I would ask that after this training, you go to our website, pull these documents up, and review them in their entirety, because I'm just going to touch on some of the highlights of those documents in this training. So you want to make sure you have all of your supplies with you before you arrive at the grow site. You want to have forms. So I do recommend that you take extra sample request forms in case you get there and they didn't fill it out correctly. And they actually have, say, 2 strains, but they only listed 1 on the form, so that you have another one for them to fill out. Extra on-site sampling forms. You'll need paper bags. We recommend like the large brown paper bags that you used to be able to get at the grocery store. Permanent pins so you can write on the bags. Pruning shears, disposable gloves, boots or booties, rain gear, not a necessity, but it's nice to have in your collection. Storage boxes for your supplies and also for the samples that you're taking. 10% bleach or another acceptable surface disinfectant. I know at the ODA we use a 70% ethanol, but whatever your lab deems that you're going to use, go ahead and use that. Paper towels, a clipboard, and then a clicker so you can keep track of how many samples you're taking while you're walking the field or hoop house. Excuse me. So for on-site sampling, you want to make sure you maintain chain of custody, because only those that have maintained chain of custody are approved samples. You want to make sure that when you are out there sampling that you're taking a representative sample of the entire harvest lot. You do want to avoid contamination. And this is kind of a multi-pronged effect. We want to make sure that we're not bringing anything into the field with us from another grow site. So if you clean your boots in between lab samplings, wear new gloves for every harvest lot, clean your shears between your harvest lots. I know at the ODA, we take that a step further and we clean our shears in between each individual sample that we take. You know, if you've already been at a grow site taking samples, if maybe you have some clean clothes that you can change into so you're not bringing any pollen or mold spores in from another field into the grower's field, just things like that. The majority of our growers are growing for flower. So when you go out and take your samples, you want to make sure that they are nice, mature bud to sample. And you may not sample any harvested hemp. So even if like that morning they went through and took a chopper and just severed the stems to have them lay down in the field, that's no longer a viable sample. The plants have to be actually growing for you to take the sample. So when you're going out there and doing the sample collection, you want to make sure that the samples that you're taking are a measure of the entire harvest lot, and you're going to put all the samples that you take into one bag. You're just going to have one composite sample. And each cutting is going to be approximately 5 to 8 inches long, and it's going to come from a terminal bud or the central cola. So that's going to include the stem, the leaves, the flower, everything. You're only going to sample one sample per plant. And if you could please avoid sampling any dead, diseased, or mechanically injured plants, that would be greatly appreciated. So this is the hypergeometric table for random sampling that you're going to find in Exhibit A that we talked about. I would recommend that you keep a copy of this handy with you. This table is going to let you know how many samples you're going to take within that harvest lot. So for example, let's say you go into a hoop house and there's only 20 plants in that hoop house. If you look at the total number of plants on the left side, you go down and then over, and it says you're going to take 16 samples. So of those 20 plants, you're going to sample 16 of them. If you go into a field and they've got maybe 300 plants in there, then using this table, we're going to take 28 samples. So the most samples you'll ever take is 29. So you're going to have somewhere between 13 and 29 samples per harvest lot. So I wanted to just kind of go over what our definition of a harvest lot is and what we consider as contiguous and non-contiguous, because even though these rules have been in effect for several years, we're still kind of having some issues with this. So a harvest lot is the same variety or strain of hemp that's grown in a distinct time frame, that's either grown in a contiguous production area within a grow site or grown in a portion of a contiguous production area within a grow site. So it does not include any hemp that's grown in non-contiguous production areas. So in this picture, each one of those hoop houses is going to be considered a single production area. So even if they're growing one strain of hemp and say all of those hoop houses, and the grower wants you to just sample it that way, you can't do it. You have to sample each hoop house as its own separate production area. Same for a field, it needs to be contiguous. So if you get out there and you see that there's a fence running through the field, then those are going to be two separate fields. If there's an irrigation ditch, a tree line, anything that would like prevent equipment from going from one field to the other, any of those types of obstructions are going to make it so that these are separate production areas. And if you ever have any questions, you can always give our main hemp phone a call, talk to one of our registration specialists, and they'll be able to help clarify for you how the grower was licensed and how many production areas and how many tests we're expecting. So the sampling patterns are also going to come from that Exhibit A that we talked about. And we have 2 approved sawtooth patterns that you can use when you're out there taking your representative samples. You may deviate slightly from these patterns if field conditions are warranting it, but still you want to make sure you're taking a representative sample of the harvest lot. So The one on the left is the M pattern, where you're just going to go up and basically do an M, and the little yellow dots along there indicate where you took your samples along those trajectories. And they even outline how many samples you took. So they took 7 on the upward leg, 8 going down, 7 up, and then 8 down. The one on the right is the Z pattern, again, letting you know where you took the samples. Excuse me. So when you arrive on site, you must be met by either the grower, farm manager, or any person that the licensee designates as a site representative. So if you don't have anybody there, you need to call them and have somebody meet you there. It is required that they have someone there while you sample. You do want to go over that sample request form with them, verify the strains. If there's multiple strains in a field, make sure they're clearly marked so that when you're sampling, you're not accidentally sampling 2 strains together. You're going to want to survey the site, get an idea using that hypergeometric table that we talked about of how many samples you're going to take, which of the sawtooth patterns you're going to use to do your sampling. Make sure that the sample and harvest area is contiguous, and then you can take your samples. Again, if you have any questions, you can call the main hemp number at 503-986-4652 and get clarification. So when you're done taking your samples, all of those samples are going to go into one bag. It's going to be one composite sample. You're going to want to seal the bag up and then use that permanent marker to write the production area name, the harvest lot name, the date that you sampled, your signature, and then the grower business name. Have all that information on the bag. And then again, please maintain custody and sample integrity during transport back to the testing laboratory. Here's the 2024 pre-harvest THC report. Again, please make sure you're using the most current version with the 2024 in the harvest lot. This is also available on our website if you need to get the most current version. The lab is going to fill these out once you have ran those samples and you have the test results for us. I would ask that you kind of pay attention to this box right here. We've had some confusion going on here this last year. So if this is the first time that you've ever gone out to this grower and sampled this specific harvest lot, you're going to check first test. If for some reason the original test fails pre-harvest testing, the grower has requested that the lab retest the lab's file sample, then you want to mark down that this is the second test. If the grower fails the first pre-harvest test and then they request that the lab come back out and resample that harvest lot and retest the lot, then it would be a resample. So if you could just kind of pay attention to those. I know it's really easy to just go through and just check that first test every single time, but please be mindful of which box you're checking there for us. So there's 2 ways that the labs can submit the pre-harvest test result report to us and the on-site sampling form. They can either do it online or via email. If your lab is equipped to do it online, you can use the web submissions portal. And if you're a lab that needs that web address, please email me and I'd be more than happy to share that web submissions portal address with you. You're going to go through and fill out the different fields, attach the sample request form, attach the on-site sample form. You're going to save a PDF of the test report that gets generated from that web submission and push submit. And then that way the results come to us and they go directly into our database. And then you want to make sure that you send the test report and the on-site sampling form to the grower. The growers are required to keep all of these records for at least 3 years post-harvest disposition. So you want to make sure that you are giving them the information that they need. If your lab cannot use the web submissions portal, then you can email the hemp test reports at oda.oregon.gov and attach the sample request form, the on-site sampling form, and the pre-harvest THC report. And again, you do want to send the test report and the on-site sampling form to the grower. And then once we get those results, we will upload them through the web submissions portal into the database. So I wanted to talk about failed pre-harvest tests for a minute because I've noticed that this is something that hasn't been happening. And so I just want to make sure the labs know that you must report to the ODA and to the grower electronically within 24 hours any failed pre-harvest test results. Our growers only have a 14-day time frame once those failed pre-harvest test results are reported to decide how they want to proceed from there. As I mentioned earlier, they can ask that the lab's file sample be retested. They can request that the lab come out and resample and retest that harvest lot, or they can decide that they want to enter into cannabis waste and disposal. But again, we only have that 14-day time frame to work within. So it's very important that the ODA gets those failed pre-harvest test emails from the lab within 24 hours of those failed testings. I also wanted to remind you that, as of 2022, all of the labs have to report to the USDA using that hemp platform. All pre-harvest tested results that include the same information that we had on the bag, the grower's license number, the grower's name, address, harvest lot, name of laboratory, date of the test, and test results. So all of that information must go into their web portal. Okay, that's it for the training. I put my name, my phone number, my direct email, and then the hemp test reports if you need that, if you're going to be submitting any test reports via email, or if you're going to be reporting any failed pre-harvest testing, or if you just have any questions, you can send it to that email address as well. So that being said, does anybody have any questions?
Is there anything that's changed from last year this year?
We do not have any.
Let's log in the Workday and send you a test.
We do not have any new rules around testing that came
Yeah,
out
sure.
this
On
year,
here,
so
is that just
we're operating under the
cloud-based,
same
or is
rules that you guys are
Yes.
familiar with from last year.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Very well. Okay. Just look up.
This is your opportunity to hear it straight from the horse's mouth. I think one of the things that Shannon talked about, and I just want to reiterate that we run into, is it is not your job as the lab sampler to provide any advice to the grower. If there's any question about a field being contiguous, or can you sample something as one harvest lot, don't make recommendations to the grower. Have them or yourself call Shannon or call one of our district field inspectors and let us make those recommendations. If you make it and it's wrong, you and or the lab could be liable for any failed result that happens because of that recommendation. So ODA doesn't take authority against you, but the grower could take you to civil court. And I don't think any of us want to be in that situation. So please never hesitate to reach out to us. Even if you are pretty confident in the answer, have them call us and make sure that we're the ones giving them that answer, so that if anything were to go south, it's on us and not on you.
Thank you, Sunny. Yes.
Okay. If there aren't any other questions, we'll close out this presentation. Again, it's recorded, so we will make it available on the website. So if you ever want to go back and find those links that Shannon shared, you will be able to do it. Or if you have other staff that were not able to attend, remember they must be recorded with ODA as having watched the presentation. Make sure that you email those to that hemp test reports, and those go directly to Shannon and a number of other staff so we can make sure that we are tracking that. With that, I'm going to close this out and thank everybody for their time this morning.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.